Let me see. Here's your fancy.
It's a sunny afternoon in the Wild West, and Buster Scruggs rides his horse through isolated lands. He appears to be a cheerful, singing cowboy, but in reality, he's the most dangerous gunman around, and there's a hefty reward out for his capture. During his travels, Buster stops at a small cantina for a drink, but the bartender refuses to serve him whiskey, claiming it's only available to outlaws. Despite his friendly face and upbeat personality, Buster insists he's an outlaw too, but nobody believes him. A rough-looking cowboy even tries to start a fight to kick him out, but quickly regrets underestimating Buster. In a split second, Buster draws his gun and effortlessly shoots everyone in the cantina. After this incident, Buster continues traveling until he arrives in Frenchman's Gulch, a town he's never visited before. He heads straight for the local saloon, where he's required to leave all his weapons at the door due to the no-guns policy. Inside, he joins a poker game, inheriting the cards of the player who just left. Unfortunately, he discovers he's been dealt the infamous dead man's hand and refuses to play it. This angers the other players, especially the menacing cowboy named Joe. Thinking he's above the rules, Joe pulls out a hidden gun, but Buster cleverly defends himself by kicking a loose plank in the table, causing the gun to spin around and shoot Joe instead. The saloon falls silent, thick with tension, until Buster breaks it by improvising a cheerful song about Joe's demise, quickly getting everyone singing and dancing along. However, their joy is cut short when Joe's brother storms into the saloon, challenging Buster to a duel in revenge. Again, Buster shows why he's the fastest gunman alive, shooting off each of the man's fingers before finally killing him by firing over his shoulder, using a mirror just to show off. Feeling unbeatable and confident as ever, Buster's mood shifts when another singing cowboy named the Kid arrives in town, challenging him to one more duel. This time, the shootout ends even faster, and Buster finally meets his match. He's shot and killed instantly by the Kid, someone quicker than him. As Buster's soul leaves this world, he cheerfully admits he should have seen this coming since nobody stays on top forever, even joining in to sing along with the Kid's victory song. Meanwhile, in New Mexico, a young cowboy finds a remote bank and attempt a robbery. The bank teller pretends to cooperate, bending down to grab cash, but secretly reaches for hidden guns, firing at the cowboy before fleeing. The cowboy narrowly avoids the bullets, grabbing the money from the cash box, but as he rushes outside, the teller returns and opens fire again. Forced to hide behind a nearby well, the cowboy tries to shoot back, only to realize the teller has covered himself head to toe with pots and pans, deflecting all his bullets. Thanks to his armor, the teller manages to get close enough to knock the cowboy unconscious. When the cowboy wakes up hours later, he finds himself tied to a tree, his neck in a noose attached to his horse. A posse has already judged him guilty and sentenced him to hang, giving him a chance for final words. Before he can speak, they're ambushed by Comanche warriors who swiftly kill everyone but intentionally leave the cowboy alive, amused by the idea of him slowly suffering on horseback. Struggling for hours to keep his horse still, the cowboy eventually catches a lucky break when a passing cattle drover finds and frees him, shooting the rope loose. The cowboy joins the drover, feeling safe at last, only to realize moments later that the drover is actually a cattle thief. When another posse appears, the drover escapes, and the cowboy is arrested once again. Brought into town, the cowboy is quickly judged guilty by the local court and sentenced to hang. On the gallows, awaiting his end, he chooses to focus on the lovely face of a young woman in the crowd, determined to see something beautiful in his final moments. Not far away, an aging impresario travels town to town with Harrison, a young performer who has no arms or legs but a magnificent voice. Each night, their wagon transforms into a small stage, where Harrison beautifully recites classic speeches and poetry from Shakespeare and Lincoln, while the impresario collects coins from the impressed crowds. Offstage, the impresario has to handle every detail of Harrison's life, feeding him, applying his makeup, and even helping him relieve himself. Over time, this tedious, exhausting lifestyle wears heavily on the impresario, making him increasingly frustrated and resentful of Harrison with every passing day. When they visit bawdy houses, the impresario doesn't even bother to pay for a girl for Harrison. Instead, he just leaves Harrison in the same room, turned away, forced to hear everything while the impresario enjoys himself. The further they travel into isolated mountain towns, the fewer people come to watch their performances, and money becomes extremely tight. One night, the impresario notices their audience is unusually small because another attraction has stolen the spotlight. A chicken that can apparently do basic math by pecking painted numbers on a board. Seeing this as a fresh opportunity, the impresario decides to buy the chicken. He cares for the chicken attentively, exactly the same way he cares for Harrison, who begins to feel anxious about what might happen next. The following morning, the impresario stops their wagon at a bridge and tests the river below by dropping a large stone into it, carefully checking its depth. The results seem perfect, and soon the impresario returns to the wagon and continues his journey, with only the chicken inside, because he has pushed Harrison into the river below. Speaking of rivers, far away on a mountainside, an old, rugged prospector has just arrived by a stream in search of gold. He carefully pans for tiny flecks of gold, patiently counting each speck to help him pinpoint exactly where the source might be hidden. Setting up camp, the prospector survives by fishing and stealing eggs from birds' nests. After days of careful digging and calculating, he finally narrows down the exact spot of a massive gold vein. Just as he starts to celebrate this discovery, however, he is suddenly shot from behind by a young man who had secretly been following him. The young attacker confidently rolls himself a cigarette to savor his victory, then jumps into the hole to move the old man's body. But suddenly, the prospector leaps up, alive and ready to fight. After a fierce struggle, the old prospector overpowers the younger man, grabs the gun, and kills him. Checking his own wound, the prospector sees that the bullet went clean through his body, missing any vital organs. He bandages himself quickly, finishes digging out the gold, and buries his attacker in the hole. Finally, he rides away on horseback, carrying his newfound riches. Meanwhile, siblings Alice and Gilbert have joined a wagon train traveling along the Oregon Trail. Gilbert, not particularly talented at business, assures his sister that he's arranged for her to marry a new business partner when they reach Oregon. Traveling with them is Gilbert's dog, President Pierce, whose constant barking irritates the other travelers. Not long after their journey begins, Gilbert suddenly has a severe coughing attack and soon dies, probably from cholera. Wagon leaders Billy and Arthur help Alice bury her brother and ask if she'd like to continue with the journey or return home. Having no home or family left behind, Alice decides to continue forward in search of a new life in Oregon. The next day brings even more trouble when Alice discovers that the boy Gilbert hired to drive their wagon claims he's owed a massive payment of $400, half due once they reach halfway. Alice doesn't have any money, and any cash Gilbert may have had is buried in his coat alongside him. Going back now would be impossible, so Alice seeks advice from Arthur and Billy, who immediately agree that the amount demanded by the boy sounds suspiciously high. Alice blames Gilbert's poor business skills, but Billy suspects the boy might be lying. Billy advises her to ignore the demand for now, promising he'll confront the boy at the halfway point to see if he can frighten him into admitting the truth. Additionally, President Pierce's constant barking continues to annoy the group, and since Alice doesn't want responsibility for a dog that isn't hers, Billy helps her resolve the issue. He leads President Pierce far away into the valley and scares him off by firing his gun into the sky, leaving the dog to fend for himself. The journey resumes smoothly, and Alice and Billy spend more time together, discovering they share similar views and growing increasingly fond of one another. Later, when the hired boy again demands confirmation of his wages, Billy's attempt to confront him fails. In a surprising move, Billy offers Alice an alternative solution. He proposes marriage, explaining he's been thinking of retiring from the wagon trail anyway. If they marry, he can assume Gilbert's debts and start a family together. Alice, initially shocked by the sudden offer, realizes she's grown to like Billy and happily accepts. Days later, Arthur grows worried upon noticing fresh footprints around their camp and quickly checks on the group, only to find Alice missing. Alice had wandered off when she heard President Pierce barking nearby and was watching him excitedly chase prairie dogs, not realizing how far she'd gone. Arthur finds her and urges her to hurry back with him. But unfortunately, they aren't quick enough. Soon they are ambushed by a group of Native American warriors. Since Arthur has two weapons, he uses one to defend himself and urgently hands the other to Alice, telling her to use it on herself if he's killed, because being captured by the natives would mean facing unimaginable suffering. Arthur turns out to be a skilled marksman and manages to scare off the attackers with well-aimed shots. But just when he believes he's safe, one of the warriors catches him off guard, knocking him down. Pretending to be unconscious, Arthur waits carefully for the attacker to come closer then swiftly shoots him. He quickly rushes back to Alice, but tragically discovers the worst. Alice mistakenly believed Arthur had died and did exactly as he instructed with the pistol. Devastated, Arthur covers Alice's body with his coat and slowly heads back toward the wagon train with President Pierce trotting beside him, dreading how he'll explain this tragedy to Billy. Meanwhile, on a different road, 5 strangers travel together in a stagecoach bound for Fort Morgan. Thigpen spends much of the ride singing loudly, annoying the other passengers. Eventually, he quiets down and casually mentions that he and his partner Clarence frequently travel this route carrying special cargo, gesturing vaguely towards something strapped on the coach's roof. With Thigpen finally quiet, the passengers strike up a conversation. Soon, a fur trapper starts sharing a story about his past romance with a Hunkpapa woman. He explains they were happy together despite not speaking each other's language, because he believes all people are fundamentally similar. Lady Betjeman, a deeply religious woman, strongly disagrees and insists that there are only 2 kinds of people, those who are righteous and those who sin. This sparks a heated debate about human nature, joined enthusiastically by Renee, a Frenchman also traveling on board. Thigpen and Clarence listen with quiet amusement, occasionally chiming in with brief comments. When Renee questions whether Lady Betjeman has remained faithful to her husband during their long separation, she becomes so angry and insulted that she nearly faints. Renee tries to alert the driver to stop the coach by leaning out the window, but Thigpen calmly explains the company's strict rule. The coach never stops for any reason. To help calm Lady Betjeman, Clarence gently sings a bittersweet folk song, soothing her, but unexpectedly causing Thigpen to tear up. Intrigued by Thigpen and Clarence's unusual behavior, the trapper finally demands to know exactly what business the 2 men are in. Thigpen openly reveals they are bounty hunters. Their teamwork is perfect. Thigpen distracts their target with stories and conversation while Clarence quietly finishes the job. Thigpen also admits, chillingly, that he finds a strange beauty in watching their victims die. Hearing this, the other 3 passengers become deeply unsettled, realizing they have no idea what might await them at their destination. When a stagecoach finally reaches Fort Morgan, Thigpen and Clarence grab their mysterious cargo from the roof, revealing it to be a dead body. They casually enter the hotel, leaving Renee, Lady Betjeman, and the trapper still inside the coach, feeling tense and unsure. The 3 passengers slowly exit the coach, anxiously looking around before entering the hotel behind the bounty hunters. Renee lingers a moment to watch as the stagecoach pulls away into the night, closing the hotel door behind him, realizing they now have no easy way out if trouble arises.